You also tweeted, Pelosi ruled Congress entirely by herself this year, and she very much likes doing this, giving people take it or leave it bills that bury the unintended consequences deep. She got reelected for Speaker in the caucus by voice vote. Can you kind of explain that to people who aren't as wonkish?
Right. So I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about two things there. I mean, we just talked about the fact that there were no bills that passed this year, and mostly that was because of the pandemic. You remember that for months, Pelosi resisted having proxy voting, like voting from home for members of the House, which what that meant is that she was kind of all alone, negotiating with Mitch McConnell, negotiating with Steve Mnuchin, and then bringing back these bills to her caucus and saying, here's what we got, vote, you're voting for this on Tuesday, right? That's what she did for months and months on this thing. And, you know, usually there's a regular order, there's a committee process, the committee marks up a bill, it goes through the committee down to the floor, the speaker figures out what gets to the floor and what doesn't. That's not what happened. I mean, there was literally no input from any member of Congress except Nancy Pelosi for like 6 months, right? This is disenfranchising to, you know, there are hundreds of millions of people that elected these members of Congress to go to Congress and represent their interests. And then when they got there in 2020, all they did was accept orders from Nancy Pelosi. That was what they did. And so, you know, that's one part of this. But you have to sort of look at the progressives on that and say, did you raise an objection to her getting another term as speaker? Did you say anything? Did you try to do anything? I mean, this gets into sort of door territory, but you know, they voted her in with a voice vote. It was essentially a unanimous vote to give her another term as speaker. A very small group of House Democrats could have blocked her from becoming speaker again for another term. You know, I've seen AOC say none of us are ready to become speaker. There is a sense that Pelosi kind of rules the House like Kim Jong-un rules North Korea without like setting up a successor ever. Right. And so like that's the way that she can maintain power. But she holds this tremendous power that you don't even see that much dissension from Pelosi. You don't, like when AOC said, you know, we need new leadership, that was an event, right? Even though she said, but I can't do it yet. That was like a main event because it never happens. There's never criticism of her from inside the caucus. There's this palpable fear from members of Congress that they don't want to get on Nancy Pelosi's bad side. And, you know, this is someone who, this is probably her last term. I mean, under the terms of when she became speaker in 2018, she said, I will serve 2 more terms as speaker, and then I will be termed out of the office of speaker. And Nancy Pelosi, if she's termed out of the office as speaker, she would go home. I mean, there's no reason for her to be back in Congress. She's 80 years old. You know, why does she still hold this sway over the caucus if she's literally a lame duck who is in her last hurrah as speaker, and yet everyone's afraid to criticize her. Everyone's afraid to challenge her. What is it that, I mean, that's a question for members of Congress more than me, but it's certainly noticeable.
Yeah. So what do you, I mean, I know this isn't, you're not a psychoanalyst, but what do you think is motivating people to not do anything?
Well, I mean, traditionally, the speaker holds grudges. She, you know, I don't know whether it's something petty like giving you a worse office, or whether it's you don't get your bills on the floor. You don't get, you know, I mean, one thing that the speaker holds is the purse strings. So if you're in a tough race, you know, you won't get that money if you buck the speaker. Now that explains the swing state Democrats, right? That explains why they might be in trouble, but it doesn't explain why, you know, Ro Khanna or Barbara Lee, or, you know, people who are in safe districts why they would not say anything. It doesn't explain that. So
The fear that they get primaried.
Yeah, but I mean that would for incumbents who are pretty entrenched. I mean, maybe for a first termer, but I mean, I don't see anybody primarying Barbara Lee or Maxine Waters. Like there are certain members who are kind of unassailable. They go in year after year, and if they have a problem with Nancy Pelosi, they should be free to say it. But that never happened. She has cultivated a real loyalty within the caucus, and that extends down to the most left-wing member of the squad. It just does not happen. And maybe they're biding their time. Hey, she's going to be out of here in 2 years. We'll deal with the next one. But what you get out of that is 6 months of one woman Congress.
She's good at raising money.
That's all she's good. I mean, she got into politics because her husband was in high finance, and she was raising kids, and they had a huge house. And so what she did in her spare time was hold fundraisers in her house. And that's how this all began. That was her entryway into politics, was being a host of fundraising events. I did this review of a biography of Pelosi that came out this year by Molly Ball from Time, and it wasn't really a review of the book; it was a review of Pelosi. The book has good information in it. The Pelosi, the person, is what I wanted to review, and you see that money has been sort of the way in which that's been her currency, as it were, into politics, since the beginning.
Yeah, someone said some stuff about how her house must smell. I have to tell, which I'm not co-signing at all. In fact, I have to say, a friend of mine who has similar politics to me, not a Pelosi fan, she said she met her at some event and she smelled amazing. So we're apparently.
Chocolate will do that, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Chocolate ice cream.
Eau de chocolat or something, yeah. This is, thank you so much, David. I mean, I'm sure I have thousands of questions, but you've been so generous already with your time.
No problem. So, happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
And we'll see you.
Yes.
All right.
Great. Thank you again. And really, very lucky to have David on the show. The best. Did that seem rude? Like I want him to get off? I felt bad. He was on for so long. You were practically screaming at him. Yeah, right. I'll be surprised if he ever comes back on. I usually have like a Jewish goodbye, which is the opposite of an Irish goodbye. You guys remember what that is? Jewish goodbye is Irish goodbye is when you leave without saying goodbye, and Jewish goodbye is when you say goodbye without leaving. So yeah, he does know what he's talking about. Next live stream, you know when the next live stream is. Anyone? Sunday, yeah, Sunday at what time? You guys, 7 p.m.